Now it is.
Okay. Say it again. I was trying to make sure it got this and this, so I should have given y'all a heads up. Okay, ready? So about half of you, it looks like, are completely brand new to LLI, so I'll give you a little bit of background. What it is it is a small group designed to be short-term intervention in a guided reading format. Okay, so if you've done guided reading before, this is gonna feel familiar to you. It is, a lot of times people will ask if it is a scripted program. It is not scripted, but sometimes I'll tell folks it's script-ish, meaning that the lesson plans are super supportive. They've got bullet points of like teacher language, things you can be explaining to the kids, okay? So if you can scroll down with me if you like. I'm gonna just kind of go through. This is the blue. If you are teaching in the green kit or the red kit or the gold kit, the samplers for those are laid out exactly the same way, okay? So if you get down to about page 6, you see a page called Components, and that shows you all of the materials that come with LLI. I'm not gonna go through everything. The main thing for you to know is here at Baggett, we've taken the lesson guides and we have bound them into, I didn't do it, other people did it, Danelle and Kelly did it. See the big binders up there? That's a gold one. So you will get the binder for the group that you're teaching, okay? You'll have your own lesson plan. You will also, some of you have file folders in your cabinets in your classrooms that you'll pull resources from. Some of the discovery teachers, other teachers like that will have places that they'll check out from. Okay, so everything's pretty much pulled for you. If you haven't seen it before, when you go to a file cabinet, you're gonna pull out a folder that is the color of whatever kit you're using. It's gonna say, like this one is gold lesson 4, and in that will be the books and any print resources that you need, okay? The books are the bulk of the program, and what's cool about them is that the books are written specifically for LLI, meaning you're not gonna be in the middle of a book and a child say, oh, I've got this book at home, or oh, I saw this at the library, whatever. They're written specifically for LLI. Okay. If you're in an orange, green, or blue kit, there's 60% fiction and 40% nonfiction. If you're red or gold, it kind of flip-flops and it's heavier, 60% nonfiction and 40% fiction. There's a lot of good different types of books, meaning that there's different series books, so kids get excited, they get familiar with the characters, and then they move up in levels and are like, oh, it's Froggy again, or oh, it's Mooseling again, or oh, it's another endangered animal book. They really get engaged with those. If you're teaching 4th or 5th grade and you are using a lower level text, do not worry about that because the books really are super engaging, and typically the kids do enjoy them even if they're reading on that much lower level, okay? So if you scroll on down, and again, y'all, I'm being fast, but I'm trying to honor your time. It's been a long day. You scroll on down to page 20. And when I'm saying scrolling, I'm watching the numbers on the top, not the actual numbers within the sampler.
So this stuff that you're scrolling through, this is in the binder?
This is all, you have the digital sampler. You should have gotten a link for that.
Oh, okay, but I'm saying, okay, but where it's pulled from is in the binder, or
This
does
is
everyone
its own
usually just
thing.
use
So
the,
like,
okay.
used to, when you came to training for this or another Heinemann product or anything found to something else, you would get an actual physical copy of this, and it'd have all your sample lesson plans and all that basic, and it was also kind of like a sales thing, like, here's this, look through, see how awesome it is before you buy it.
Okay.
They don't send those physical copies out anymore, and so what I did was I downloaded all the digital ones, so you have links to all of them.
Oh, okay.
So if you, let's say you start out right now and you're teaching in the blue kit, and then your kids move up and you need to move on into the red, you'd have the sample materials for either one of those. Okay. So this is the kind of the lesson plan framework. Okay. And I'm going to go over blue today. We'll go over red on that September 14th. Okay? The main thing you need to know about LLI is that all the lessons go on an odd day framework or an even day framework. So it's kind of like a 2-day sequence, okay? When you start with your kids, you have a Fountas and Pinnell level. You know that your group is on level L. You're going to go to your level L, the lesson number 1 in your level L in your binder, and that's where you start. And you do teach sequentially through that, okay? The odd lesson framework starts out with rereading for 5 minutes, roughly, something the kids have read before. So it's kind of fluency practice, you're kind of warming up, gives you a chance to listen in. In terms of if this is done during Titan time, I always had my book basket out on the table, and kids knew as soon as they came in, their job was to sit down, grab a book, start reading. If I'm in my classroom, and again, this is not a have to, this is just what worked well for me, I would typically teach my mini lesson, and then whoever my LLI group was knew that they were always my first group of the day. So as soon as I get done with my mini lesson, those kids went straight to the table or wherever I was going to teach them, started doing their rereading, and that gave me a few minutes to get the rest of the room settled, get them into their independent work before I went in and started teaching that group. Okay?
So if you're just now starting, how are they rereading anything?
Day 1, they're not,
Oh, okay.
but day 2, and from there on,
Gotcha.
you'll see in the lesson plans, it'll actually suggest like yesterday's book or one from previous lessons.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So reread for about 5 minutes. Then they have about 5 minutes of phonics or word work. Then the biggest part of that odd lesson day is they are going to read a new book on their instructional level. Okay, so it's a book that they are going to need support from you on. And how that works is you start out with a book introduction. You're gonna see that the lesson plans that's already written out for you. We're gonna watch a sample one today. You introduce it, they all read it, they all read the entire book. It's not choral reading, it's not popcorn or taking turns reading, it's everybody reads from beginning to end. And then you discuss the book. At the end, there's another 5 minutes or so of letter or word work. That one is almost always review. So if I'm running late on time, I never feel guilty for missing that part. Or let's say I have these kids maybe for Titan time, and I want to send something for them to do independently or something for them to do at home. That works well in that regard also. Okay. So odd lesson day, the meat is that new book on their instructional level. Even day starts out the same way. They come in, they're reading a book, familiar text. The only difference is on the even day, you are assessing one child during that time. So while everybody's kind of doing their familiar reading, you're listening into one kid. There's a running record form that looks just like your BAS assessment that's included on those even day lessons. And I'm gonna do that running record on one child. Okay, the perk of that is if your kids, and probably they are if they're in an LLI group, if they have an RTI goal or you need data points, you can use that running record as data points, okay? So about 5 minutes of that, 5 minutes of phonics or word work, and then the bulk of this lesson is writing about the reading. So the kids are gonna do some sort of writing. Sometimes it's a dictated writing, sometimes it's interactive, sometimes it's a shared writing. It's not Lucy Calkins' beautiful piece of writing, okay? Mm-hmm. It's writing in response to the reading. So you're writing something about yesterday's new book, okay? It's not really so much teaching them how to be a writer as it is giving them opportunities to put their phonics and their word work skills into application, okay? And then it ends with reading a new book. This time though, it's on their independent level. So if I'm on a level E, then my book on my even days is gonna be a level C or a D. So I'm still gonna introduce it to them, but it's gonna be a super quick, easy read. That was a lot of me talking at you, okay? So just note, this is the orange, green, and blue all follow this exact template. When you move into red, gold, and purple, the lessons get a little longer because the texts are longer, but it's basically the same pattern, okay? And we'll kind of talk through that on the 14th.
And we were supposed to do this for 30 minutes, knowing that we have like centers and
Yes.
meeting with other
Good
groups.
question. It's always logistics, right?
Yeah.
So during Titan time, there will be quite a few groups pulled of kids that will be getting an LLI group, either from a classroom teacher, from one of you, or from a discovery teacher. So that's one way it will happen. Those kids can get that full 30-minute lesson each time during Titan time, okay? If you're the classroom teacher and you're trying to do your LLI group with your lowest babies, one of the ways that I would kind of tighten that up is, for me, I can get that to about a 20-minute because I might not be sitting with them while they're doing this. Like they'll come up, they'll do their rereading. Up and about doing what else I need to do with other friends while they do that piece. And then I probably would drop this piece right here. The main thing you've got to get in is that reading the new book and the phonics work. Does that make sense? So you're trying to keep that group, those lowest kids in your room, really need you every day, and they really need this intense in order to catch up. Okay? But this isn't supposed to be forever and ever. It really is supposed to be short term, get them in, catch them up, get them out. So for me, it's typically, as a classroom teacher, it's whoever my lowest group is at that moment. So let's say I'm in Mr. Stevenson's class, my lowest group is a level F, and then my next group is a level H, okay? My level F group is going to be my LLI group until they catch up to the H, and then the H group is going to become my LLI group. So it's whoever is my lowest group at that moment.
If you have one F and 5 H's,
Then
do
we'll
I
have
only
to
work
talk
with the
about
one
that.
F until I catch them up to the H?
I would take the H's and we find a new plan for that F.
Oh, I got you,
Okay.
okay.
So that's some of what we're gonna do when we look at your data and your reading levels. If you've got one outlier like that, ideally what we would do is find a Titan time group for that friend so
Oh,
that you're
okay.
not trying to teach that one outlier.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Does that make sense, Sean? Okay, so if you scroll on down past this, the next thing you're gonna see in your sampler is actual lesson plans, okay? So I'm gonna walk you through it and then we'll see parts of one. So, this is an odd numbered lesson, so the bulk of this is gonna be on reading the instructional level text, right? What do you notice just about the lesson plan itself? What do you see?
Tells you the materials you need.
Yep, I'm a visual person, so I love that they always show me a picture of the book that I need. They're always gonna give you goals. In the lower levels, you have reading and then phonics and word work goals. In the upper levels, that word work shifts to where it's more of a vocabulary focus. But you're always gonna see what you need and the goals. And then on the bottom of the page, they're going to go into this big elaborate description of why this is the best book for this lesson. I never look at that, okay? So you can just take that off your to-do list. I'm just trusting them, and I'm gonna go on into the lesson itself. Okay. So every lesson plan, no matter what color kit, no matter what level book, is going to look exactly like this. So if you taught one kit, it's gonna feel very easy to go right into a different color, okay? So, in this one, it's starting out with a rereading, and you'll see you've got some bullets there about different prompts that you might give them. You've also got down, do you see on the left margin where it says Prompting Guide Part 1? Okay, the left margin is kind of like your instructional coach. So if there's a resource that you need or ideas for teaching a particular thing, it's always going to be in your left margin. Anyone who's taught LLI before, do y'all have a prompting guide in your room? Nope. Okay. So we have some. One comes in each kit, and I'll show you exactly how to use it on the 14th, but this is what they look like. You may have one and not know. So you have Prompting Guide 1 and Prompting Guide 2. Prompting Guide 1 is all about decoding and just basic summarizing. So let's say maybe you've got a group that's reading on first grade level and you really spent a long time, if ever, that you've taught kids that were on that level. This prompting guide is going to give you strategies for working with them. So, an example on this one, it says you're having the kids reread books from yesterday and the day before. And one of your prompts, that third bullet, says prompt for phrasing and intonation. And then over here it says refer to pages 11 and 19 as needed. So if I go to page 11, I've got strategies for helping kids decode when they get stuck in text, which would be appropriate, right? And then if I go to page 19, I have prompts for reading with intonation and fluency. Okay, so it's basically, when I was training in reading recovery, I remember my teacher leader gave me all these prompts. If the child does this, then say this. And I had them up on my bulletin board in front of my face so I could always do that if I was stuck. That's basically what this is. Okay. If you're a techie person, or nerdy, whichever way you want to frame it, I guess I'm more nerdy than techie. This is an Apple app. And if you're super nerdy like I am, you can have it on your phone. You can download it anytime you want. But so you can get the whole book as an app. Okay. Prompting Guide 2 that I'm opening right now is all comprehension. So you've got a whole tab on inferring, whole tab on making connections. Okay, so we'll look more at these on the 14th. But if you don't have access to those when we get started, I'll make sure you have the pieces and parts you need. Okay. So what comes after the rereading? What are we going to do then? The phonics and word work, right? And so it's always listed as a principle. Where are my lower grade people in here? K1, 2, it's laid out exactly like your phonics lessons plans. Okay, it's always going to start with a principle, which is kind of your rule. This one is you can add ed to the end of some verbs to show that something already happened. Use basic spelling rules correctly when adding the word ed. So this is practicing that ed inflected ending. One thing that you're going to notice about the phonics and word work is that it always starts out with you teaching or modeling something, and then it's going to be followed by the kids actually having some guided practice with it. So it's really, it's always going to be a gradual release of responsibility model. Okay. So 5 minutes of rereading, 5 minutes of phonics or word work, and then we go into the reading of the new book. And you have prompts for introducing the text, prompts for reading the text where the kids are actually doing the reading, and then you have some bullet points for discussing and revisiting the text. Okay, I'm going to let you scan that on your laptops while I pull up the next piece. Oh, I've got that little thing I can't get rid of. Let's see.
Because I was a specialist teacher.
So,
oh, we didn't get trained. They just said,
I don't know how to make that little black
You
one.
click the pen, click that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so
yeah, they switched over to it in the,
just to kind of help you frame this,
I think you told me
we'll do this and then we'll go into actually watching the lesson. So, this slide just kind of helps you see how they all fit together. So if you're new and I'm saying green, blue, red, and you're like, what on earth is she talking about? This kind of helps you put it together. So at Baggett, we have orange through gold, right? We don't have a purple. We have one orange. Okay, so we have 3 of those. The ones we primarily use are the green, blue, and red, okay? Orange, green, and blue all have the same lesson framework that I've just walked you through in the blue kit. Red, gold, and purple, theirs is a little expanded because the books are longer, okay? So what it means when it says blue grade 2, that doesn't mean that it's only for 2nd grade. It means that the text band for 2nd grade is included in that kit. So it goes starts with level C, which is like end of kindergarten, and it goes on up to the beginning, middle of 3rd grade. Okay. The other thing it means is that those lessons are assuming that 2nd grade standards have been taught or are being taught. So, if I'm in the blue kit, you'll notice that there's a lot of overlap between blue and green. There's even some overlap between blue and red. Okay? A level C book is a level C book whether it's in the book room or it's in the orange kit or the green kit or the blue kit. It's just, that's the difficulty of it, right? What's going to be different within the kits is a level C in the green kit is going to be, you're going to be asking the students to do less rigorous things with it because that kit assumes that only 1st grade standards have been taught. Whereas the blue assumes that 2nd grade standards have been taught. So, when we're looking at your kids in your room and the kids you're going to be serving, we're going to take that into account to try to figure out what's the best place for you. So let's say I have a 4th grade group and my 4th grade group is on level L. Which kits could I put them in? Which ones have level L? Blue and red, right? So if I'm a 4th grade teacher and I know that the blue kit is 2nd grade standards and the red kit is 3rd grade standards, ideally I would want them in red because that's closest to where they are, right? But let's say this level L group is new to the country and they're acquiring language. If that's the case, then I'm probably going to start them in the blue kit because I'm anticipating it may take them a little longer to progress. And I could go all the way through the blue lessons, and then if they're not ready to go to M, then I could go on into the red kit. Does that make sense?
So if they're at the beginning end of L, then we would want to start off with the blue so they can continue in L longer.
If we're anticipating it's going to be a longer group for them, yes. Okay. So some of that. Some of those decisions your coaches and your admin team will help you with and kind of figure that out, but I want you to kind of understand, like, why might my colleague be in blue and where I'm in red, okay? All right, so I'm going to go back. If you're back on your lesson plan, you have, or I hope you have, we're going to see if you have, what is this page called? The home page, okay. When you're in your teacher resources, and any random grade, or whatever grade you are, I just arbitrarily put 3rd grade, and language arts, when I search under those, oh, hang on, let's see. When I search on those, I will get under my additional resources, this right here that says Heinemann LLI. If you don't have that, email me and let me know and I'll add you to the list of people that we're adding that for, okay? The really nice thing about you having that button is that when you have it, you have access to everything I'm showing you, every video, every resource, it's all on here, okay? So if you go home tonight and it's storming and you don't have a show to watch on Netflix or Amazon Prime, then you may log into here, download your sampler, and watch any sample lesson plans you want, okay? Forever and ever. So, I'm gonna go into blue today, and I'm gonna go into videos, and the professional development videos, sample lessons, and we're gonna look at lesson 59, and we're just gonna see the book introduction and a little bit about how that looks when we're reading the book, okay? We won't watch all of it.
So you can watch someone teaching a lesson on every level?
Yes. Well, not every level, but every colored kit.
Oh, okay.
So if you download the red kit, the red sample lessons match the lessons in there.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, hang on. Let you see her intro, and if you follow along, it's gonna be very similar
Heard
to the plan.
about plants that eat bugs? Have you heard about bugs that eat plants? Yeah, we've talked about that, right? Bugs can eat plants. Well, in this book, it's called Plants That Eat Bugs. What do you think? Turn to pages 2 and 3.
How do the plants like eat it in their stomach?
Guess what? That's what this book is going to teach us. It won't teach us everything about plants that eats bugs, but it'll teach you some things about how that happens. Okay?
So she should have prepped
So
this
see on pages 2 and 3.
poster long before this?
The
What'd
right.
you say?
She should have prepped the chart before this?
That's actually from the phonics lesson.
But does it tell you, like, beforehand to have this chart made up so that,
It's in the lesson
Not
plan and a
called
lot of
bug.
them add. So like this one you're adding to the chart that you've done on previous lessons.
I got you.
But yeah, all that's gonna be in your phonics lesson.
Writer tells us that some bugs, like you said, eat plants. Some plants eat bugs. And they eat bugs in 3 different ways. Okay, so we're going to read about 3 ways. Turn to pages 4 and 5. This bug landed on this leaf, and you know what happens? It snapped shut. Say the word snap.
Snap.
What 2 letters do you hear at the beginning of snap, or do you expect to see? What do you think, Samantha?
S-T.
Say the word again. Snap.
S-N.
SN is going to be at the beginning. Take a look on page 4. Find that word snap. Say that word. Snap. Just snap. So this plant eats the bug when it slaps shut or snaps shut.
Okay, so the book intro, if you're not used to doing a book intro like this, it's gonna feel long to you. And sometimes you'll think like, oh, I gotta get this group done. And you'll be tempted to not do that or to shorten it. I will tell you, as long as I have been doing LLI, which is, I first used the blue kit when I was pregnant with Caroline and she's a senior. So it's been a while, okay? So, the one piece of the lesson that I almost never will deviate from is the book intro. And the reason for that is this whole program, there's lots of programs that are out there that can teach great phonics skills, that can teach great reading comprehension skills. To me, the perk of this is you're constantly building for independence, okay? And so in that book intro, you're prepping for that first read for kids to use multiple strategies. Okay, so if I ask most elementary students, what do you do when you get to a tricky word? What do most of them say?
Well, hopefully context clues, because we've been doing that.
Okay, so you've taught well, so they're gonna say that, right? What do most kids say and what do most parents say?
Sound it out.
Sound it out,
Ask
okay?
somebody else.
Nothing wrong with sounding it out. Nothing wrong with using phonics skills, right? But if I go and I ask middle schoolers, what do you do when you get stuck? What do middle schoolers say?
Google.
Maybe.
Skip it.
Skip it. And so my theory, somebody needs to do a dissertation on this, but my theory is that those kids, those struggling readers who only have that strategy of sounding out, once the words get too long and it doesn't work anymore, they don't have another strategy, so they just skip it, okay? And so what this book intro does is it's giving them multiple ways to decode. The first one is it's always gonna give them lots of background information and really get them engaged in the meaning of the text or the comprehension, okay? The second thing it's gonna do is it's gonna give them structural clues, whether it's text structure, like you just heard her say. This book we're gonna learn about 3 ways. And so you've got 3 headings, okay? That's the text structure of this book. You're also gonna sometimes have it where it's not so much text structure as it's language structure, which really helps our ELL kids. So think about how often our book language doesn't match our spoken language, okay? And there might be weird phrases like off we go or something like that that we don't typically say in our speech. And so you'll see in here where many times you're prompting or you're including that book intro, those types of repeated phrases. If it's a low level text, think about like, y'all know the book Brown Bear. What's the next phrase? What do you see? If I was introducing that what do you see might be a structural prompt that I would give, okay? And then visual is anything about the way the word looks or phonics based. So in this one, when she said, Let's say the word snap. What 2 letters do you expect to see at the beginning? She's giving them that visual prompt to really look at that, okay? So in the book intro, you're gonna have comprehension or meaning, you're gonna have structure, whether it's text structure or language structure, and you're also gonna have visual, which is that phonics word work piece, okay? So she's gonna continue to introduce that book, and if you followed the rest of your plan, you would see that she's sticking pretty closely to those prompts, okay? When she gets done introducing the book, she's gonna ask the kids to read themselves, okay? So I'm gonna scoot a little bit up to that. Let's see, I may have gone a little too far. Okay, so she's listening into them read. Everyone's reading and she's gonna listen into them one at a time.
I'll have you read loud enough for me to hear you, okay? All right. Go ahead.
So for little people, like up to like 2nd grade-ish, I usually will have them whisper read. Usually beyond that, I'll tell them they can read
Look at the
silently.
leaves on this plant. They can trap bugs. A bug lands on a leaf, and the leaf snaps. Snap.
Okay, now you're reading very quickly. The author put something on the page to help you. Do you know what those are for?
Period.
Yeah, when you see those, stop and take a breath, because that will give you a chance to really think about what's happening, okay? All right, keep that in mind when we read the next page.
Okay, so as they're reading, you're listening into kids and you're gonna interject with individual
Go ahead.
teaching
The
points.
leaf traps the bug.
So the question that I'll usually get on this is, does it bother the other kids for everyone to be reading the same thing? Or, and honestly, if it bothers anyone, it's gonna bother you more than it does them, okay? Typically, it doesn't bother the kids. What I kinda liken it to is, forever ago, I had the pleasure of being at Simonton Elementary when it was the largest school in the state, which meant that we had 23 kindergartens, okay? So, it was basically if everybody went to the potty and got a lunch and got on the right bus, we were a successful day, right? So, that year, because we were so crowded, all of us that were support folks shared one music room. And so we had 5 cubbies on one side, 5 cubbies on the other, where we worked with kids one-on-one or in pairs. And then we had 3 big tables in the middle where people pulled small groups. And I thought it was gonna be an absolute nightmare. What I will tell you though is I learned so much that year, because I would be in my little cubby working with my friend, and I would hear Sherry or Steve or someone working with their student, and I would go, oh, that was so smart, I could try that. So that's kind of what's happening to our kids when we're doing that one-on-one teaching point. They may not need it right there at that moment, but they've heard it and they're gonna apply it later. So when I get that question about, does it bother them? Honestly, they kind of do their own thing and they're picking up teaching points as they go. Sometimes people will also usually ask, what if they start choral reading? Or they get stuck and they wait for their friend. That happens all the time. And that's when you just kind of interject. If I see someone doing that, that's when it's their turn to read to me. Or if I have a friend that typically wants to echo their peers, I may do something at the beginning, like saying something like, you know what, on this, the word like is in this book lots of times. I want you to find it and touch it and read it for me every time you see it, to kind of stagger that start and have them start at a different pace. So you can just do some things like that, and that will usually break it up. I'm gonna give up on that. So, mainly because it's 4 o'clock and it's not. So, after that book intro and the reading of the book, you would then discuss the book with the kids, and you've got prompts there to do that. I don't wanna share that, I wanna present it, sorry. So you've got that discussion prompts within your lesson plan, and then you've got 5 more minutes of that optional letter or word work, okay? In tomorrow's lesson, we're gonna come in, we're gonna reread, maybe it's Plants That Eats Bugs, maybe it is another book, okay? And I'm gonna listen into one child reading part of that book and do a running record, okay? Then we're gonna do phonics or word work, and we're gonna write about it, okay? If that weren't buffering, I'd let you see a little snippet about writing, but we may need to do that next time. If you scroll down in your lesson plan, you'll see that the writing on day 60 is about where the kids are generating, you know, what was it, what did they learn about plants that eat bugs? And they're writing things like the plant can snap the bug, or the leaves are sticky, things like that. So it's not, again, it's not beautiful writing, it's more, can they get down what they understood from the text, using and applying the phonics skills. Other question that folks will ask is, are the phonics lessons or the words, are they taken from the book? Typically they are not, but they are following the continuum or that developmental sequence of what kids need to be able to do at that level. So even though the phonics lesson there was on ED, if you think about it, in that book we had snapped and trapped, so we did have some ED endings in that book. On an earlier lesson, they were doing things like those S blends that come up in this lesson, like with the snap and stick and all those things. So you're not seeing specific words lifted from the books for the phonics lessons, but they're right developmentally where they need to be able to read that level text. Okay. All right, that's a lot in the afternoon. Okay. Does everyone know where your sampler is? Like, you can access that sampler. Anybody not get that link from me?
I didn't get the link.
Okay, will you email me, Emily, and I can show you tomorrow morning if I,
Sure, yeah.
if you don't see it now. If you will, sometime between now and the 14th, read through those sample lessons in that sampler. We'll come back on the 14th, kind of ask some questions, talk more about logistics of just how do we get started, who your group is, etc. And then we'll also look at for sure some writing, and also look at the lesson framework for the red, gold, purple kits. Okay. If you're new to this and you're nervous, I'm super nerdy about it. I would love to come sit with you and co-teach it with you, or do a model lesson for you in your class. I'm happy to do that. So just know that I'm here to support you with that. Yeah.
So when things like that are probably TBD is like if we have like special ed students, like
Who gets them?
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, all of that will be determined like based on your data, right? Yeah, okay. All right, goodies that are on the table. If you are a primary person, I've probably already brought you a stack of the blank writing books, okay? If you haven't gotten those, you're welcome to take a stack. If you are a 4th or 5th, if you're 4th grade, you may take a red, a set of these. These are the writing books that the kids will use in the lesson, okay? So if you're a 4th grade, you get a red set. If you're a 5th grade, you get a gold set.
And this is also what they're
That's the
writing in?
primaries, that's with green, blue. You would probably need a pack of those for 3rd grade.
Yeah, I mean, I have them in my room, I was just wondering what I was supposed to do.
Yeah,
with
when
this
they
one.
do the writing lesson, that's what they'll write in.
Oh,
there's
no
nothing
lines
magic
in the
about
book,
it.
They just write?
Nope. There's nothing magic about it, it is just a place to kind of hold their writings.
Oh, okay.
The other thing that's on the table is if you don't have, I had these mostly out for discovery teachers, but if you don't have a whiteboard, an individual whiteboard to use for small group, you need to take one of those. And the other thing is 4th and 5th grade teachers, you may take 6 of these. These are bags and little portfolios for the kids to take their LLI books home in and any work that they do with those. So if you're 4th or 5th, you